Hello, everyone. This is Paul Evans, and I'm the interim program manager for the Ross Industrial Consortium Americas, and we'll host the call today. So we thank you for joining us. We understand that we have a number of people from different time zones and different parts of the world, so we appreciate some of you who are getting up very early or some of you who are staying very late. So just a couple of housekeeping things. One is that the meeting will be recorded, and we'll post the recording. And we are also considering multiple meetings to accommodate different time zones in the future, so stay tuned for that. And then also just on a Q&A, we'll follow up with Q&A at the end. So please, as you're posing questions for the speakers today, I would just ask that you'd indicate which person that you'd like to respond to your particular question when you put your question in the chat area. So with that. What I'd like to do first is just work our way through the agenda. What we're focusing on today are things that we need community involvement in. So we're seeking broader-based community involvement in a number of different areas. You'll hear from Paul Voss about one of those areas, which is going to be a calibration and a configuration assistant. You'll hear from Min Ling on a business analytics dashboard, Dave Coleman on a MoveIt code sprint that's coming up, and Mirko Borgnon that'll talk about Rosen, which is an initiative out of Europe to bolster the Ross industrial effort. So with that, I'm actually just going to turn it over to Paul Voss initially. So the community at large is familiar with Paul and his leadership on the Ross Industrial Program, and just to say a few words as outgoing program manager for Ross Industrial Americas. Paul, over to you.
Well, hello, this is Paul Voss. I was the Ross Industrial Consortium Program Manager for the last 4 years and have now taken a new position with a startup company called Plus One Robotics, and will be hopefully enjoying the fruits of our collective labor putting Ross Industrial to use for a kind of warehouse automation product that we're developing. It's my pleasure to kind of introduce my successor, Mr. Matthew Robinson, who is going to be filling this position here starting in June. Matt is hailing from Caterpillar and has been a really active member of the Ross Industrial Consortium and a big proponent of open source software for industrial automation. And at this point, we'd love to hear just a few words from Matt as he is going to be kind of taking the reins in this position.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, so my name is Matt Robinson, as indicated by Paul Voss. I've been at Caterpillar for 13 years, wrapping up that tenure here in the next few weeks. Like as Paul indicated, we've been seeking, in my organization here in corporate manufacturing research, seeking to implement automation solutions to help our factories be more effective, both from a cost, quality, and productivity perspective. Over that time, obviously, we've gotten familiar with Ross and Ross Industrial, and the Ross Industrial Consortium has become a very valuable tool. So, my interest here and to move on and to come to the consortium, very excited and passionate about the opportunities we have here within Ross Industrial and the Ross Industrial Consortium. So I'm excited to help develop applications and ensure Ross Industrial continues to progress and gets out into industry in a sustainable fashion. So I'm very, very excited. I look forward here in the coming months, like once I get my feet on the ground, particularly as I get there in June, reaching out to consortium members, touching bases, shaking a lot of hands when we can do it face-to-face, but at least touching bases via electronically or phone in the near term. But excited to work with the community, so broader community as well. Anytime we can get together in these different types of get-togethers, community meetings that are online, as well as the various consortium meetings and conferences that are great feeders into Ross Industrial. So with that, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and interacting with everybody in the community. So thanks to all of you for your support to this point, and looking forward to working together moving forward.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And from here, we're going to switch over and hear from Min Ling, who's the Ross Industrial Asia Pacific Program Manager at the Advanced Remanufacturing and Technology Center in Singapore. And she's going to talk a little bit about a program that's called the Business Analytics Dashboard. It's the topic, and we'll also explain a little bit about what we're looking for from the community. So, Min Ling, are you able to hear us and come live?
Hi, Paul. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me. Can you see my screen?
It looks like it's loading.
Perfect. There we go.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. So as Paul mentioned, we're just talking about the business analytics. But before I go into that, I just want to give a quick update on PackML because that is what we're working on in terms of moving on to the business analytics part. So we were working on PackML. It's a collaboration project with 3M, Southwest Research Institute, ARTC, and +1 Robotics. And our current status is that we've developed an open source C++ library and Python. So there's two types of libraries, the C++ and the Smash. And we are currently working as ROS as the PackML master and using the remote PLC as an equipment module. Now what's interesting here is, and I'll show you this PackML demonstration now, it's that we're able to continue this work that we've started towards the start of this year towards trying to get an API into the plugin for RViz. The benefits here is the state machine can be applied to the ROS C++ node for any industrial application. And because of that, we can then go into the business analytics part. Okay, so this is our business analytics dashboard. It's quite interesting what we can do in terms of obtaining the correct data and also understanding what kind of data we can get from the PackML in terms of state transitions, availability, overall equipment effectiveness, and root cause analysis. The approach is not to reinvent any wheel on any other components or current PackML OEM software and so forth, but to actually use the data that we get from ROS and also PackML and to use it effectively. So the next slide here is showing just a quick analytics dashboard. And for those who were at the RIC Americas meeting, this is just a small update. So we know from the feedback that we can ideally obtain data from state transitions, for example, how long it's in execute, how long it's in hold, how long it's suspend, work out the averages of the time and so forth. And that's very important for the manufacturing industry. So our core is actually for contributors and testers for the C++ package and Smash, and also a call for contributors for the next phase towards the business analytics dashboard. Is there any questions?
So, Min-Ling, I'm going to ask you a question. If somebody did specifically want to get involved with this initiative from the community, what would they do next?
Yes, so it's a good question, Paul. So please contact me. I guess there'll be post email after this community meeting with all our contact details to get involved in this project. It's actually a collaboration project, so it is, you're putting a hand up to help us support some software development work.
Okay, great. And others who have questions, just for Min-Ling about this particular topic, please note that in the chat area. And with that, we'll move on to the next topic, and we should have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So next up is going to be Paul Voss, who is he's currently at a company that he had mentioned earlier, +1 Robotics, formerly the ROS Industrial Americas Program Manager, and we welcome him here today to talk a little bit about what's going on with respect to sensor configuration and calibration assistant as we look also for community involvement in this area too. So Paul, over to you.
Okay, thanks Paul. Yeah, this is Paul Vaz again. So yeah, I just wanted to I guess maintain some continuity with leadership of this project. This is a important item for us at +1 Robotics as we are wanting to make sure that calibration of our product can happen very quickly and easily. So ROS Industrial has, I guess, developed a really neat calibration library. It's just called Industrial Calibration on GitHub. If you're there, I've got some great videos. You can see the capabilities of that library if you go to the ROS Industrial's video tab and scroll down to that calibration topic. The calibration library is great for things like intrinsic and extrinsic sensor calibration, whether that be heterogeneous sensors, whether that be a single sensor, whether those sensors are on moving frames or on static frames. So it's a really powerful library. But as we've been kind of letting the community know about all of this capability that's available to us, we've encountered maybe a learning curve problem. And so this project, the Setup Assistant, is really to bring some of the ease of use that we're seeing with, say, the MoveIt Setup Assistant, and then translating that concept or that idea into the ease of use for this calibration package. So what you see here is a little quad chart, and can you flip to the next slide? So this is a little quad chart that talks about the current state of the project. So you see a little bit of a image there of what we are envisioning as a calibration wizard, complete with a neat little turtle-based wizard who's calibrating a camera that he's holding in his hand there. You see the motivations are, as I described, that we would like basically better ease of use. We'd also like to add a couple more capabilities in terms of the ease of use of the GUI, and also the ability to calibrate kinematic chains, so serial kinematic chains, robot arms. And so the approach here, we've got some involvement from a graduate student local here in San Antonio. It's supported by Southwest Research and by +1 Robotics. So he's contributing on our behalf, and we're looking for other contributors who are interested in these same capabilities and the same ease of use with this tool, who could come in and help out with the project. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So this is basically just some artwork that is a concept for our front end of this setup wizard, and we envision creating templates for some of the common calibration needs. So you see the upper one there would be that new capability to do serial kinematic chains. The next row down with intrinsic calibration, whether that be a camera by itself, or whether that be a camera on a rail where you're able to move the camera on the rail to help with that intrinsic calibration. And then finally, a number of different scenarios for extrinsic calibration, which is perhaps the most common need, knowing where the camera is in relation to the robot or in relation to a work cell. So single camera, stereo camera, or perhaps a camera that's on a moving frame. So let's go to that next slide then, Clay. So this just kind of compares maybe where we are today to where we're proposing to go with this new effort. And you can see the current toolbox is actually very capable, providing both 2D and 3D camera calibration capabilities, integrating with motion through MoveIt, and then enabling simulated and real calibration of sensors. But the remaining items there, those last 4 lines, really represent the additional capabilities and additional ease of use that we'd be bringing to this project. So at this point, I'm going to be, I guess, taking on point for this particular project, and we're go ahead and flip to my contact information. Glad to receive interest from others who would like to contribute to this effort. And so you can see where the existing library is hosted there on GitHub, and you can also see the +1 Robotics site, so you can get a little bit of background on us. And then I'm reachable there by paul.vaz@rosindustrial.org. So please contact me if you're interested in participating in this, and we'll be continuing to work on that going forward. Thank you all.
Great, and thanks, Paul. That's a great overview of where you're trying to head with this program, and we look forward to the community participation on this as well. We do see some questions rolling in, and also I guess if they're general in nature that apply to all of the topics, then no need to call out anyone specifically. But if you are looking for a response from a specific presenter, please make note of who you'd like to respond to your question when we get to Q&A. All right, so we're going to keep rolling through our topics here for the moment, and Dave Coleman is up next, and many of the community members know Dave from his work with supporting MoveIt, and he's going to talk a little bit about a code sprint topic that we have. Dave comes to us from Picnic as a software consulting organization, and we look forward to hearing what Dave's going to be looking for with respect to his MoveIt code sprint. So Dave, over to you.
Howdy. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I've been past couple of years helping maintain MoveIt, and we want to see new features being added to MoveIt and kind of pushing it along, consolidating all the work it's been doing recently. So MoveIt's highly used in lots of different labs and organizations, but oftentimes they get these projects get forked, and pulling them back into the main code base is difficult. And so in this code sprint, we're hoping to focus on minimum cycle time for motion planning, in a particular applications bin picking, although the results will be used for all sorts of different industrial applications. Is there a next slide button? Thank you. And so I mentioned that there's all these different groups that have forked MoveIt, and a lot of them are research labs who have been continuing to develop better motion planners with more optimization criterias, or different characteristics, less probabilistic, more deterministic, which is good for motion planning. But we also want to add better cost functions rather than just joint motion. We want to be able to incorporate end effector motion, distance moved to the end effector, and also the overall time of movement and planning time. So all these pieces will be able to give us motions for robotics in factory situations that needed a fast cycle time, fast motions. And so the idea here is to focus on bin picking, just to keep it well defined, as you see in these pictures. And we're going to fund the maintenance and to bring out different labs and encourage them to really push back their code, and then do extensive code reviews and testing and documentations. Right now, there's been some code rot in several of our libraries, including Stomp and Chomp and SPPL. Also kind of engage other motion planning communities. For example, Drake from Teatrix Lab has expressed interest in integrating with MoveIt, but we haven't actually been able to pursue that yet. And so this is a pretty simple code sprint. At the end, we want to be able to benchmark all of these different planners, and this is the key takeaway, is create a report that shows these different planners that we've revived and kind of given some more love, and present this report to show that for different applications, which planners are the best. So some motion planners will be better for environments that are highly cluttered with lots of obstacles. Some are better for situations where the environment's static, such as a factory work cell, but you really care about the planning time instead. And so I've talked previously to the Kravaki lab, Likhachev's lab. They're both very interested in continuing to support MoveIt. It just takes some extra push and legwork there to get that going. So a simple code sprint, we're looking for about 2 participants to help with financial support, but also we're welcome to anyone who's has vested interest in the motion planning field who can actually contribute some developing time. That also work. So if you're interested, please email me, and we can set up a call to discuss more of the details. And yeah, I really appreciate being allowed to talk here, and I really want to see MoveIt continue to grow and improve over time. So help me support that effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, for a lot of us in the community, MoveIt's important, and a lot of us are using that for some of the great work that's going on in industrial robotics. So great highlights on where you're trying to go with the code sprint, and we look forward to seeing where that goes next.
Thank you.
So great. Next up is Mirko Borgnon, and he comes to us from Stuttgart, Germany, and he's the ROS Industrial Europe Program Manager, and also at Fraunhofer IPA. And Mirko has the privilege of of being a key player or a leader on this effort called Rosen that he's going to describe to us, and it'll also offer some opportunities from the community to get involved in helping with this initiative. So Mirko, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. As Paul said, I come from Fraunhofer IP, where we manage the ROS Industrial Consortium Europe. And as I like to say, during this month in which we introduce Rosen to different audiences, though we have not been as successful as our great colleagues in North America to raise private money towards FDPs, we have been quite successful recently in raising public money. And that's where Rosen comes from and that's his aim. So I can move on to the next slide, please. Oops, I can as well. Perfect. So our rationale, probably most of you attending this meeting are already sold on this idea, but our rationale to funding agencies here in Europe is that ROS is a thing that is here to stay. We know it's a de facto standard practice, and talking from a new perspective, we cannot afford to be left behind. Our industry can definitely use it and keep using it, and maybe take even a more active role in it. So we already enjoy here in Europe huge public spending in research and development. We have arguably the biggest civilian robotics funding effort in the world. So the idea is, hey, let's just put a bit of this money into ROS and contribute to its development. Don't miss this great train that puts together a worldwide community. That's how we got Rosen. We started in January. It's a 4 years, roughly an 8 million budget project funded under the Horizon 2020 scheme. One of its aims is to aggregate the various EU-based ROS activities. It actually builds upon I wrote what exists, and specifically the ROS Industrial Initiative here in Europe. And I think this was the selling point, because we were, so to speak, a bit frustrated of seeing many EU-based projects that were starting from scratch, had barely the time in 4 years to get to some prototype, and basically were almost always discontinued or had to survive through different means, but couldn't get to the point of critical mass to have really an impact afterwards. Instead, with Rosen, we start from something that is alive and well. Actually, it's doing very well lately. So ROS Industrial, and even more importantly, the money will have a lasting impact, because there is already a community, there is already an infrastructure, there are already processes in place to take it from there. So we see it as a boost to strengthen an effort that is already ongoing and significant, rather than rolling yet another framework. So next, please. Yes, so our ambition is moves along those lines. Again, that will be a quick slide because you're already very likely familiar with these concepts. We have quite an effort in Europe on industrial platforms, at least at the funding level, and we think that open source is a necessary ingredient of the platform concept. So it's key to share it among different institutions, and it can be beneficial for robotics and factory automation at large. So probably if you heard me talking at different events or even at this kind of online meetings, you heard me doing the analogy between what Android was for smartphones in being potentially what ROS can be for robots. And actually, we want to push it a bit further for robots and automation. So it's an accepted truth that open source is highly suitable for this kind of infrastructure work. The ROS Industrial Initiative, which now has more than 50 organizations and it's spread across the globe, sort of proves it. We have industrial deployments. Unfortunately, we can't talk publicly about all of this. That's the name of the game. In this kind of industry, you can't always be super public about it, but we already have a number of those which we can talk about, and we can anecdotally provide evidence. The EU can impact it even bigger, in an even bigger fashion. Sorry. So we already have quite, I would say, a big share of influence. Again, please remember that this is a pitch talk to funding agencies. So no evil intentions to overtake anything, but show them that their money can go a bit farther by sponsoring this initiative. We already have a big share. We are all familiar with this concept of sweat equity in open source. So if your code development works, then you get a seat at the table. You have technical credibility and following. And this funding then can provide this boost. Next slide, please. So the approach, we thought that ROS and ROS Industrial, particularly, already have a good standing, but we need to make it better. At least we have to make it better to grasp and to provide metrics about how it fares in terms of software quality. Then, as I wrote, business friendly in terms of really taking the effort of going the last mile, and that's where the FTD topic, to which I'll devote some more attention in later slides, comes in. And accessible, so it's already the tool of choice for many university courses. And yeah, if you graduate these days from a university, I would say around the world, and you do some experimental work in robotics, chances are very, very high that you will do it, or you will have done it once you graduate from ROS. But so we want to improve along all those three axes, we want to build upon those three pillars. So we know that ROS, especially industrial, has already best practices and tools for modern software engineering. So there is extensive use of continuous integration. We have good testing, good coverage for unit testings. There are code reviews for the pull request mechanism, but we want to further improve them. We have selected partner of it, which I'll talk about later, with code scanning techniques and infrastructure for it, automated test generation, and with model and build testing. For what concerns the part that will make it more business friendly, we have a significant amount of money, so actually roughly half of our budget, close to 3.5 million euros available for third parties to do ROS industrial development. And I will see what we mean about that in a minute. But think about it as partly subsidized FTPs. And for what concerns education, we are ramping up on summer schools. We have a partner, the Aachen University of Applied Sciences, which has already been running since 2012, a very successful ROS summer school, and we are expanding on that effort. But as importantly, we want to reach out to professionals, so people working in industry, which are perhaps not likely to attend the summer school, and to whom we have to probably provide a slightly customized curriculum. So we have this second parallel effort, the ROS-I Academy. And there is more to the education than that. We are also working through the coordinator, the Delft University of Technology, on online courses and all the other efforts that can scale the education. Next slide, please. So what we aim to get an impact on in terms of measurable stuff. So we wanted to have deployed on the factory floor. As I said, we have anecdotal evidence of it being the case already now. The picture that you see on the left is a leather processing finishing machine. Actually, it's a small line made of 3 units. That's with an Italian manufacturer with which there was a collaboration with a member of the ROS Industrial Consortium Europe, like robotics, with the integration part. And even though you wouldn't think of it as a robot, well, it has some ROS in it. And it was actually pretty interesting to hear how it actually helped them to do the integration across different machines and to coordinate the system, which we know it's often one of the ROS strongest suits, doing the high-level coordination of different components. We want to get to at least 50 documented ROS industrial-based deployments on factory floor, and this will prove to those who will still be skeptics after those 4 years of technical viability. One of the is financially sustainable, so once we run out of funds, we know that the ROS industrial consortia around the world can provide for seed money for further efforts. And once we get to, that there's this very ambitious number, 100 members, so we are roughly a quarter way to there. Having this entity which can sponsor further development would be a way to keep it healthy and financially sustainable. And we're shooting for 1,000 engineers trained among those different channels. So summer school, ROS-I Academy, and the online classes will of course provide scalability for this model. And with this education pipeline, we'll make sure that once it becomes an established tool, there is there are skills in the market that can supply various companies that will have adopted it with a workforce that is up to the task. Next slide, please. So I said make it business friendly, and we have this FTP scheme. FTPs, as we heard them so far, so focused technical projects. As I said, there is a way to get I would say, significant portion. It's actually 1/3 covered for you. So how does that work? So first of all, we have the constraint, given that it's EU funding, that it's only entities with legal state in the EU, but also associated countries. So Norway, Switzerland, Israel, the first that comes to mind to me. You can, of course, find the full list on the internet. Then you're eligible. Please note that if you assemble a team in which some of the members are not seated in the EU, that doesn't mean that you're not eligible to participate. It means that we can only reimburse the costs incurred by the EU-based ones. Then, in terms of what we provide, we cover 1/3 of the development costs. Sorry for the typo, of course it's up to 100K max. And what we expect from you is that you give us your commitment, also in legal terms, to cover the remaining 2/3. We'll cut it down in milestones, so not to embark on something particularly risky from the get-go. And the results needs to be ultimately because there is a provision as for regular FTPs for some delay for the code before it's open source, but ultimately the results needs to be open source. So we feed this virtuous cycle. Teams can be from one organization up. So you have a good idea and you can or also perform on it, then you're already eligible. It can be teams of multiple organizations, and I think that teams of 2 to 3 are typically a good mix. But if more than one, then we'll have one being, let's say, driving the team, so the FTP champion, as in the FTPs that start within the Rosen consortium. And think that when we say development costs, like your own personal costs are refundable. So say that you're an entity which can show us that you incurred 100 units of cost in terms of personnel, and you can get 1/3 of it in cash from us. Perhaps it would be development that you would do anyway. So that's a great way to get some of the costs recovered for something that, again, perhaps you would do anyway. And I would add, it's a great way to have exposure, because both for reporting reasons to the funding agency, and again, to keep the community growing, both in terms of code base and organizations involved, will make a big deal out of the FTPs that we sponsor. So the code is open, and has been since March 31st, and you're welcome to go read it, download the application guidelines. Rosen-project.eu is the project website. From there, you can get the link, or otherwise, /FTPs gets you directly there. Next slide, please. So, example topics, just to ground it to something more concrete, so you can start thinking. So it could be, the first thing that came to mind to us is hardware-related components. So there is quite something for drivers. Actually, those are also quite representing of the topics that are brewing right now, FTPs. So people asking, hey, would a ROS driver for my own sensor be eligible? Yes, definitely it would be. So again, anything that can be applicable to make ROS amenable to products, either directly or indirectly. So ROS enhancement proposals, as we know, they are not software per se, but they help in standardization. So they help in this sense the effort. Reference implementation of algorithms, that's another good example, or say application templates. So say you have a palletizing application that you notice you keep writing more and more often, or like the PackML, like many of the FTPs that we've, or I would say even all the FTPs that we heard about so far. So from Dave's MoveIt-based proposal for the FTP to PackML, the business analytics dashboard, they are all excellent examples of stuff that we would like to fund. But also improvement of existing components, and actually that's the MoveIt use case, or less intuitively perhaps, but also great value would be process-related work. So perhaps you would like to merge into your ROS package some code that you found on the internet, but you're not 100% sure about the licenses that this code was source you found is licensed under, or it can be a security related audit, again, process related work applies as well. Next slide, please. So how do we learn more? Again, the aforementioned URL. Again, so sorry, the late night typos here. So data sessions to be held, of course not held. Here at Fraunhofer IPA, on a 2 days event, July 18th and 19th. So we have a session at that event on July 19th. So if you're from the area, that's related also to another project, Robotic TNet. So we'll disseminate it through multiple channels. The flyer and the rest of the material are being finalized these days, and as soon as it's final, we'll put it through our usual communication channels. So Fraunhofer IPA, so IPA, Fraunhofer D, Rosen Project, rosindustrial.org. I want to save the date, it will be July 19th. As contacts, so the coordinator sits at the TU so our colleague Dr. Carlos Hernandez Corbata, and I myself also work as a point of contact for the FTP topic, so you are more than welcome to shoot us an email. Next slide, please. And the great team that is behind it, it's 6 EU-based institutions. So the coordinator, again, Delft University of Technology. We as Fraunhofer IPA are ramping up our ROS Industrial Consortium management activities that predate Rosen and on top of which Rosen builds. We have the partners from Fachhochschule Aachen, so the Aachen University of Applied Sciences for the education part, ABB, especially for the model in the loop testing of the robots and on the hardware side. The software experts of the IT University of Copenhagen are driving the software quality related efforts. And the other Applied Research Institute, Technalia, is like Fraunhofer doing the tech transfer part for Southern Europe, and actually they are driving a very important commercialization template to make it easy. So that's what they refer to as non-technical matters typically. So to make it easy to provide a template, a blueprint, how you do proper licensing, how you do the proper paperwork to put open sourcing your products. Again, we are thankful to our funding agency, so the EU Commission, which under the Horizon 2020 program funded the project. And I think we are done. Next slide should be my contacts. Yes. So I see already some questions popping up in the chat, but Paul, back to you. If you want to ask for questions live on the mic, then maybe we can take those that are on chat.
Great, thanks, Mirko. It's an amazing project that you're leading out on, and we look forward to seeing where it will go in the future. And what we're going to do now is I do want to highlight a few events that are coming up, and then we're going to go into the Q&A session. But just in case we have anybody that needs to drop off during our Q&A. But so I want to just run down through just some things to put on your radar screen. One of them is the ROS Industrial Asia Pacific Workshop. That's probably the most near-term opportunity. That's on May 25 and 26 in Singapore. There is a training opportunity at Southwest Research Institute, so ROS Industrial Training, June 6 to 8 at Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, Texas. And these are all on our event site. I'll post that in the chat window here in a few minutes. Mirko mentioned the Rosen info session. That'll be July 19. I don't think that's posted on our site, but we'll put that up there on an event after this. Make sure also you have ROSCON on your radar screen, September 21 and 22 in Vancouver, British Columbia. And then this is out there a ways, but just to put it on your radar screen, ROS Industrial Europe Conference, December 12 to 14. So with that, let's actually work through some of the questions that we have here, and let's get some feedback from our presenters. We talked about the training topic, so maybe we'll work our way back on that since that's the most fresh one here. But we have somebody that asked about Mirko, with your presentation specifically about trained engineers. What does that mean, and where are courses offered, and how are they offered? And can you elaborate on what you're doing with respect to Rosen? And we'll touch on and Minling, and then I'll talk about what we're doing. So in that order, Mirko first, Minling, and then Paul.
Yes. So again, first question about the trained engineers. So what do we mean by that? So that was a general term. So we put one of the KPIs, one of the metrics that we want to, on which we'll measure the success of the project once it ends, and on which we committed with the funding agency. We wrote 1,000 trained engineers. As I said, we will use different channels from the summer school format, and the next one is upcoming in August in Aachen, so north of Germany, close to the border with the Netherlands. And then we are working on the first editions of the ROS-I Academy. So stay tuned on our channels for that. But the MOOC, so I see that somebody wrote about the MOOCs that are already mentioned into education. So I can comment. I do not follow the MOOCs directly myself. It's the partners at Aachen together with actually, it's more like the partner in Delft who are coordinating the project, but the partners in Aachen are strong on the education part, which are working on it. And I can say that the effort is progressing nicely and according to schedule. As for when they will become available, I wouldn't be able to give you a date right now, but you're welcome to communicate with our colleague Carlos Corbato, whose email I'm writing in the chat for a tentative date for it. There was another question related perhaps to nationality of people who could be eligible. So as I answered on the chat, the only real limitation, the only real constraint is that to be eligible for the funding, so we can't transfer funding to organizations whose legal seat is not in an EU or associated country. But as for your participation as a person in the project, you're totally welcome to enroll into our training events, or if you are a foreign national employed by an organization with a seat here that partakes in it, no problem at all. You're more than welcome to participate. As I said, it actually is also possible to assemble a team for an FTP, which has non-EU-based organizations. The limitation is that we'll be able to fund only the development costs at the EU-based ones. But you might have other reasons to join the team, as we often do for FTPs. So to share technical burden, to provide guidelines to actually get the code as it is developed, if you're part of the FTP team, in case that is the delay of the code is the release of the code is delayed. So I know it was a lot of information in a relatively short time, and I know that this typically sparks a lot of questions, which we try to address in the best possible way. I would welcome you in terms of any further inquiries to be sent to me, to my colleague Carlos. I will also repeat my email address here. We try to cover as much as possible on the website, but again, further inquiries are welcome. And if you are in Singapore in a week at the launch of ROS-I Pacific, you are welcome to get in touch with me. I will also stay for ICRA. Likewise, in July, we'll host the event here at Fraunhofer. So if you come across me, feel free to stop me and ask all possible questions. I don't want to be abusing all the other speakers' time. So Paul,
thanks, Mirko.
If you want to take more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I just wanted to touch on also just I'm going to circle back to the training topic just briefly. Min-Ling, I know you have an upcoming training program in Singapore, and can you share a little bit about who can get involved in that and when that's going to happen?
Sorry, hi Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes. So as Paul mentioned, we are organizing a training where we'll have a member from Southwest Research Institute to come to Singapore in August. We're looking about the August timeframe. And it's actually, the training is actually open to all ROS users, basic and also a bit advanced. We will have two types of courses. I believe the first couple of days is more the basic course, whereas we have an advanced day towards the end of the training. So to get more further information, please don't hesitate to contact me, and then I will keep you updated with when this training happens.
Great, thanks. And then our most immediate training opportunity is here in the U.S. and it's upcoming on June 6 to 8. And it will be a an introduction to ROS with a few topics that are maybe a little bit more advanced. It's over a 3-day, and it's offered to our consortium members as part of a benefit to the consortium, but it's also opened more broad to the community at a fee. And so you can see the structure of that on our events website. I sent you a link to that in the chat window. And so you can go in there and see if that's something that you could fit into your schedule. And if so, we'd love to see you here in June 6 to 8 for that near-term training opportunity in the U.S. So with that, I actually want to open back up a question to all the presenters. And it's actually related to a question that was further up in the chat area. But one of the questions that somebody posed was, how do I get involved, at an individual level, and what kind of skills or capabilities are you looking for in an individual to contribute? So I want to just circle back through just our presenters just to talk a little bit about, what is it that you're looking for in a contributor? What kind of things do they need to know, or skill sets do they need to have? And I'm gonna actually start with Min Ling on that with respect to the business analytics dashboard, and we can kind of cycle through. Min Ling, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. So sorry, Paul, what was the
Okay.
question?
Oh, that's all right. Did you pick that question up, or you want me to repeat?
Can you please repeat?
Sure. So there was a question related to what kinds of skill sets are you looking for contributors to community projects, and how does an individual participate? So if you're looking for specific things, what are those, and how do they get involved?
Sure. Okay, thanks, Paul, for the update. So what we're looking for is some ROS contributors and ROS testers. So there's two different types. We have the contributors who will be contributing to making sure the business analytics part work. We also have the testers part where we have to test the current software from Smash and C++ with a remote PLC. So there is a lot of opportunity to try to get involved. In terms of the frequency of the meetings, we have a fortnightly meeting, which we just set up tasks for the next 2 weeks, and we come back as a team to discuss what we've done, what help we need, and so forth. So again, please contact me if you have any further questions or would like to support this collaboration project.
Okay, great, thanks. And Paul, could you comment on, with respect to the calibration effort that's ongoing?
Yeah, so for the calibration setup assistant, we're definitely looking for C++ programmers. Also, folks who are familiar with the Qt library for GUI development. And then, like Min Ling had said, always looking for testers. And in this case, testing is thankfully pretty affordable, because you pretty much just need Linux PC and a camera along with a target that you can print out. So yeah, folks who'd be willing to test it, and then I think in that role it'd also be great if testers might be willing to do some documentation to really record the exact procedures that they were using in order to get things to work for them.
Okay, great. And Dave, over to you.
Hey.
Things are you looking?
Yeah, I'm always looking for people who want to get more involved in the MoveIt project. Typically, the way that looks is that you maybe start contributing code on GitHub, or helping answer questions on the mailing list or the issue tracker. And then if you're particularly inclined, you can contact me or one of the other maintainers about particular projects you want to make sure are good to pursue before putting too much energy into it. And we'll give you feedback and advice. And in terms of maintainers of the MoveIt project, if we see that you've been very active and seem like you know C++ really well and best practices for open source collaboration, one of us will reach out to you and ask you if you're interested in having more access to the code bases. It's how it's gone before. So yeah, developers are very much welcomed. Okay,
great, thanks. And Mirko, I know where you're going with Rosen is still early stage, but and I think we're still working to figure out how, at an individual level, you get involved with some of the programs and projects. But could you share a little bit about your thoughts about, if you're an individual, is the first initial effort that I would focus on the training opportunities, or maybe talk through a little bit about what kind of skills you think would be immediately useful, or what kind of skills should be developed to be useful on the Rosen program more long term?
Yes, so I believe that there is something that an individual can contribute on all the three different say channels that we laid out. So our partners in Copenhagen are actually running some interviews or some assessments of how the development process actually works for both, let's say, the core developers and people who are contributing significant portions of code, and also to, let's call them, more casual developers. So if you wanted to put your development experience, no matter what the level, to use to help us kind of reverse engineer how this process works, so that they can better come up with tools that support it, and to ultimately have those tools work towards a higher software QA, then you're welcome to reach out to me so I can short circuit to them. It will definitely be a great use of your willingness to help in ROS. Again, don't think that this is limited only to very experienced ROS developers, because the trick to make this successful is to be able to embed and to make the help of everybody contribute to our code base and to our community. So no matter what your level, if you want to undergo a short interview via email and want to beta test stuff, please write us. For what the FTP is concerned, again, we can't give money to private individuals. It needs to be an organization with legal seat, but still, if you have some skills that can be put to use, and somebody who has such legal seat who can benefit from them, just making them aware of this opportunity would be great. And you could then be involved, as I said, even non-EU-based organizations and entities can be involved. You might not receive the money, but if you're interested in the code and you will do it anyway, I would say be a promoter of this initiative. And as for the education and the training, of course, there will be, at least for the physical trainings, some fees. We are mostly on a cost matching scheme, so we are trying to run them at a very advantageous rate, thanks to the public funding that we have. But you're welcome to join, or if you are based somewhere in Europe where you think there is a community big enough of locals that it grants the opportunity to have a local session. We're also looking at this. So already the next edition is not in Stuttgart as it used to be, of ROS Industrial Training, but it's combined with the summer school in Aachen. And especially the ROS-I academies, those for professionals, the first two editions will likely be around Europe at local communities. So again, if you're from an area in which you think you can get us an audience, you're welcome to propose us to host there, or you're welcome to join for the events that we already host publicly. So yeah, I would say in this sense, you have the possibility to contribute through all the different channels. We would really like to leverage the expertise of active members of the community, so please reach out to me. Maybe you can just describe your individual standing, and I can suggest you the best way to do so.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mirko. One other question came up that's more about a career path related. So, as you're starting to look for, at an individual level, starting a pathway towards using ROS or developing in ROS and ROS Industrial, and you want to kind of use that for a career path. I guess the career path piece, I would point out that ROS on a resume is pretty hot right now. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there through the general search engines for robotics careers. But I also wanted to point out, though, for those who are very early stage to getting familiar with ROS, that there's also some online tools as well. And I'm going to ask Levi Armstrong, who's here with us too, to talk just briefly about what's available online. And I think he's posting that right now. So, Levi, do you mind commenting on that?
Yeah, sure. So currently we have the beginners training curriculum out on the GitHub repository under the industrial training. And so all the source code is out there. There's all the exercises. You can go to the GitHub repository, and then under the Wikis tab, we have an outline of the curriculum and each section, so you can open it up and go through each one of the exercises. It walks you through step by step on how to execute that exercise, but you can also, in the GitHub repository, if you get stuck at a place, there is a source code that provides you the solution so you can see what you're missing and how to complete it. So it allows you to be able to go through the ROS training on your own. Also, if you have any questions, you can feel free to post questions through the issues or email one of the maintainers.
Great. Thanks, Levi. I think we have time for one more question, and we'll target to stop at the top of the hour. But there's a question about results of focused technical projects and when they're open sourced, and I think it may be different for different initiatives. I can talk to initially the ROS Industrial Consortium Americas program. So for focused technical projects in our consortium here in the United States, what we do is we have the opportunity for funders of the focused technical project or contributors to hold that back for a period of 2 years. But our goal is actually to open source it immediately, and so it's really up to the core funders. If it's an open community program, that's a different story, and those will all be those will all be open source right out of the gate. So Mirko, you might touch base too on and Minling on what you're doing in Asia Pacific as well as Europe with respect to when are things open sourced and when are they not.
Yeah, I can take directly from here for the Rosen FTPs. So as the applicant guide describes, we on purpose actually made it the same as the agreement for the FTPs, which is the ROS Industrial Social Membership Agreement. So the exact wording is that the results can be delayed in terms of open sourcing for up to 2 years. So personally, I always encourage contributing organizations to keep them open straight from the beginning, so right off the bat. Very likely, you will have identified a part of what you need to develop that is non-critical to your business success. So the typical shared infrastructure that we talk about. So you don't have to use this up to 2 years long delay to make a business out of it, though we wanted to leave the option open and on the table. It might be that you want to delay the open sourcing because you don't want the whole thing to be available until there are bits and pieces that coalesce into a beta release. So it's for a number of reasons that we had the option to delay, but again, first, it's up to 2 years, and second, I personally would encourage FTP participants to make them available right off the bat. Minling?
Yes, so the FTP project that you just saw for the PackML and the business analytics dashboard, that's actually open source. So you can actually go onto the ROS Industrial Consortium GitHub and download for development of PackML. As for the other FTP projects, we haven't started any. However, those who are coming to our workshop next week, there's an opportunity to do a road mapping, a strategy road mapping of topics that is of interest for Asia Pacific. This is probably the forum to raise your concerns and also where you would like to have FTP projects for the Asia Pacific Consortium, and that's where we will start from there. So as Mirko said, depending on the type of FTP project, it could be closed for 3 years or up to the consortium members to open it and open source.
Great. Thank you, Minling. And thank you for all the presenters and as well as you all, the participants who have attended this today, even though you may be even very early or very late, depending on where you are. We certainly appreciate the support of the community, and we look forward to doing great things together. So with that, we're going to sign off, and there's a number of contact information in the attendee chat window, but you don't have to capture it there. We'll send out a post community meeting blog post to our rosindustrial.org website where you can access the information that we presented today, as well as have contact information for the individuals. So with that, signing off, and I wish everybody a great day wherever you may be. Talk to you later.